Hey, Questionians. I'd like you to pause and take a minute to fill out the unit and the area of focus along with your name and your date. Pause and come back. Okay, so today we're going to be still using unit rate, but we're going to be focusing on problems specifically about rate, distance, and time. We've already done a couple of them in the past few units, but this is specifically about distance, rate, and time. We're going to be using unit rates, so proportions, but we are also going to be focusing on this equation. Distance equals rate times time, and you use this a lot in science as well. So I like the triangle because here we have distance, rate, and time. So if they're right next to each other, to find the third, you'd multiply. If they're up and down, to find the third, you would divide. So distance divided by rate equals time, distance divided by time equals rate, and rate times time equals distance. So here's distance equals rate times time. That's how most people set it up. But we could also write distance divided by rate equals time, or distance divided by time equals rate, depending on what you're looking for. We're going to be solving these problems in a couple different ways, using the equations and using proportions to show you different ways so you can choose which way you'd like. So for this problem, Jack runs at a constant speed of 15 miles per hour, and he runs for 2 hours. How far would he travel? So we have to remember that we are doing miles per hour, and our speed is 15 miles per 1 hour. And it says how far would he travel in 2 hours? So we can just, if it goes 2 hours, and remember, I'm really hoping that my expectation as you have the ratio label set up off to the side, I can see that all I have to do is multiply by 2 and multiply by 2. So if he traveled 15 miles in 1 hour, he would have run 30 miles in 2 hours. So Jack would have run 30 miles. Don't forget that good answer. All right, for this problem, Aunt Mary traveled at a constant rate of 70 miles for 90 minutes, 70 miles per hour for 90 minutes. But then on a second part of her trip, a constant rate of 45 miles per hour for 30 minutes. And my question is, how far did she travel? So we have to figure out each part of the trip. So there's the first part and there's the second part. So if for the first part she traveled 70 miles per 1 hour for 90 minutes. Well, 60 minutes is 1 hour, so this would be actually 1.5 hours. And we're looking for this. So I can do this a couple different ways. I can use a calculator, and I know that 1 hour times 1.5 is 1.5. So you could take that 70 miles and multiply it by 1.5. But I tend to break it up. If they're going 70 miles in 1 hour, so 60 minutes would be 70 miles. 30 minutes would only be half that, which is 35 miles. So if I add that together, 70 plus 35 is 105. But again, you could have cross-multiplied. You could have solved by multiplying both the numerator and the denominator by 1.5. Either way. this is how far she traveled for the first part, 105 miles. For the second part, she traveled 40 miles per 1 hour for 30 minutes or a half an hour. So I know that 1 divided by 2 gets me my 1/2. So I just have to divide this by 2, the 40 by 2, to get 20 miles. If she had traveled a whole hour, she would have went 40 miles. So now we have our 20 miles here for part 2 and our 105 miles for the first part. So if I do the first part plus the second part, I get the total. So this was the first, this was the second distance. So a total distance of 125 miles. All right, for example 3, I'm not actually going to do this problem. I would like you to try it on your own, but I would like to say that I probably would use the distance equals rate times time. So here's my distance, and here is my time. How would I find the rate? See if you can do this problem, and we'll talk about it in class. All right, so for the first example 4, this is another road trip where there's 2 different parts. So the first part, Jason traveled 180 miles in 3 hours. So the rate is going to be 180 miles in 3 hours. And we want to know per 1 hour. So I can easily do that proportion, divide by 3, divide by 3. So for the first part of the trip, he went 60 miles per 1 hour. I'm going to speed ahead to the questions. Which was his speed for each part, and which part of the trip did he go faster? So for the first part, he went 60 miles per hour. For the second part, he'd only traveled 120 miles in 1.5 hours. So this time we weren't given the rate, we're finding the rate. So, a couple different ways that we can do this. You could get a calculator and from 1.5 to 1, figure out what you would have to divide by. And same with this one. But I think it might be easier for this one to use our equation. So I'm going to use distance equals rate times time. So he went 120 miles. We don't know the rate. That's what it's asking. How fast was he going? What was his speed? But we do know the time was 1.5. So if we need the rate on the side by itself, the r on the side by itself, it's being multiplied by 1.5, so we need to divide by 1.5. Yes, you can use a calculator for this unit. So 120 divided by 1.5 is 80. So for the second part, his rate was 80 miles per hour. So, to answer the question, I would say on the second part of the trip, Jason drove 20 miles per hour faster than the first part. All right, peace out.